Admiral Chen Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, staring at the tactical screen with a sinking feeling in her stomach. The numbers glowed bright red against the dark display. 10,000 enemy warships had just appeared at the edge of human space. Her own fleet had exactly 100 ships. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the lead enemy vessel," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. "Put it through," Vasquez said, though she already knew what it would contain. The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall, insect-like creature with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the bridge lights like black mirrors. The Krillian admiral spoke in perfect English, his voice mechanical and cold. "I am Admiral Fex 9 of the Krillian Empire. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Comply, and your species will be relocated to designated worlds. Refuse, and you will be eliminated. This is your only warning." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Vasquez looked around at her crew. Some faces showed fear, others anger, but all showed the same question. How could they possibly win against such odds? "Analysis, Commander Okafor," Vasquez said to her tactical officer. Sarah Okafor pulled up the enemy formation on her screen. They're using standard hegemony battle doctrine. Large ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Every vessel knows its exact position and role. It's the same formation they used to conquer the Altari, the vegan colonies, and 45 other species. "What's their success rate with this strategy?" asked Vasquez. 100%. No species has lasted more than a week against them. Vasquez studied the enemy formation more carefully. The Krillian ships moved like a single organism. Every turn was coordinated. Every advance followed precise mathematical calculations. It was beautiful in its perfection, and terrifying in its effectiveness. But as she watched, something clicked in her mind. She had seen this before, not in space battles, but in her grandmother's chess games. Her grandmother always said the same thing. The player who can only think one way will always lose to the player who thinks 100 ways. "Commander, bring up historical files on every major military defeat in human history," Vasquez ordered. "Ma'am?" Okafor looked confused. "Every time humans were outnumbered and still won. I want to know how they did it." As the files appeared on screen, Vasquez saw the pattern. At Marathon, the Greeks were outnumbered by the Persians, but won through superior tactics. At Agincourt, English longbowmen defeated French knights by refusing to fight the way knights expected. In World War II, the Allies defeated larger German forces by being unpredictable. "The Krillians expect us to fight like everyone else," Vasquez said. "They expect us to form up our ships in neat lines and charge at them. That's what their computers are designed to counter." "But ma'am, what else can we do? We don't have the numbers for any conventional strategy," Torres said. Vasquez smiled for the first time since the enemy had arrived. "That's exactly the point, Lieutenant. We don't use conventional strategy. We use every strategy." She turned to face her communications officer. "Open a channel to every human settlement, every colony, every ship in space. I want to talk to everyone." The channel opened, and Vasquez found herself speaking to millions of humans across dozens of worlds. Her voice carried to military academies and farming colonies, to research stations and mining platforms, to families huddled in their homes watching the news. "This is Admiral Vasquez of the Earth Defense Force. In 71 hours, we will face an enemy that outnumbers us 100 to 1. They expect us to surrender or die fighting like every other species they've conquered. But we're not every other species. We're humans." She paused, looking at the faces of her crew, knowing that similar faces were watching across human space. "I'm asking for your help. Not just soldiers, but everyone. We need strategies, battle plans, ideas that no computer could predict because no computer could think of them. Send us everything you can think of, the crazier the better. We need 99 strategies to go with the one we already have. The response was immediate. Communications channels across human space lit up with incoming messages. Military officers sent formal tactical analyses. Video game players suggested strategies from their favorite games. Children drew pictures of spaceships playing hide-and-seek. Historians sent ancient battle plans from Earth's bloodiest wars. Within hours, thousands of ideas poured in. Most were useless, some were impossible, but many were brilliant in their simplicity. A farmer suggested using asteroids like sheep herding. A chess master sent patterns that had never been used in space combat. A circus performer described how to make ships appear where they shouldn't be. "Ma'am, we're receiving over 10,000 strategy submissions," Okafor reported, her voice filled with amazement. "Good. Start categorizing them. I want to know which ones we can implement with our current resources." As her crew worked through the night, Vasquez watched the enemy fleet. The Krillians maintained perfect formation, their ships gliding through space in mathematical precision. They were confident, disciplined, and utterly predictable. On the second day, Admiral Thex-9 sent another message. "Your time grows short, humans. We detect no military preparations. Are you already defeated?" Vasquez didn't reply immediately. Instead, she gathered her senior officers in the war room. Charts covered every wall, showing dozens of different battle plans. Some looked like traditional military strategies. Others resembled dance patterns, sports plays, or abstract art. "The enemy thinks we're paralyzed with fear," she said. "Let them keep thinking that. Meanwhile, we prepare for the most complex battle in human history." She pointed to the first chart. Strategy 1. Make them think we're weak and confused while we coordinate everything in secret. Every civilian ship becomes part of our fleet. Every human becomes a soldier in an invisible army. Her officers stared at the plans, trying to understand how 100 ships could fight like 10,000. "Ma'am, this is insane," said Captain Rodriguez from the heavy cruiser Beijing. "Exactly," Vasquez replied. "That's what makes it perfect. The Krillians have studied 47 different species. They know how to counter every logical strategy, but they've never fought anyone insane enough to try this." As the final hours ticked away, human ships across the sector began moving. To outside observers, it looked like chaos. Ships flew in random directions. Civilian vessels mixed with military craft. There was no obvious plan, no clear formation. The Krillians saw this and relaxed. These humans were even weaker than their intelligence had suggested. The battle would be over in hours, not days. The collection began at midnight, Universal Standard Time. In her command bunker deep beneath Luna's surface, Commander Sarah Okafor watched as humanity responded to Admiral Vasquez's call with an enthusiasm that bordered on madness. "We're up to 15,000 submissions now," reported Sergeant Kim, her fingers flying over the communication console. "And they're still coming in." Okafor rubbed her tired eyes and took another sip of coffee. She had been awake for 36 hours, reading through every strategy proposal that arrived. Some made her laugh. Others made her think. A few made her wonder if humans had always been this creative when facing impossible odds. "Read me some of the new ones," she said. Kim pulled up the latest batch. "Okay, here's one from a music teacher on Mars Colony. Use human music to confuse their sensor systems. Play jazz during battle. It's so unpredictable that their computers will crash trying to find patterns. Mark it as possible," Okafor said. "What else?" "A group of miners from the asteroid belt want to convert their drilling equipment into weapons. They say if you can crack open an asteroid, you can crack open a spaceship." "Definitely possible." Next, a 10-year-old girl from Europa suggests we paint funny faces on our ships to make the enemy laugh so hard they can't fight. Okafor smiled despite her exhaustion. "Psychological warfare. Put it in the maybe pile." The submissions kept coming. a retired general sent detailed plans for ancient Earth battles, adapted for space combat. Video game champions contributed strategies from real-time strategy games, complete with resource management and timing charts. A group of theater actors suggested the entire fleet pretend to be something else entirely. But it wasn't just the military-minded humans who contributed. Farmers sent ideas about herding and misdirection. Teachers contributed lessons on child psychology that could apply to enemy morale. Even a group of comedians sent battle plans designed to be so absurd that enemy commanders would waste time trying to understand them. Meanwhile, in orbit around Earth, the enemy fleet maintained its perfect formation. Admiral Thex-9 observed the chaotic human preparations with growing confidence. His tactical computers had analyzed human ship movements and found no coherent strategy whatsoever. "Status report," he commanded his communications officer. "The humans continue their random movements. Our analysis suggests panic and poor coordination. Several of their ships have left their assigned positions without apparent purpose. They are behaving exactly as predicted. Fear has made them irrational." What Thex-9 couldn't see was the careful coordination happening beneath the apparent chaos. Every random ship movement was actually repositioning vessels for multiple battle plans simultaneously. Human commanders communicated using codes hidden in civilian broadcasts, music, and even recipe exchanges. Back on Luna, Okafor had assembled a team of analysts to sort through the strategies. They worked in shifts, categorizing ideas by feasibility, resource requirements, and potential effectiveness. "Ma'am, I think you should see this one," said Lieutenant Park, holding up a tablet. "It's from a chess grandmaster on Alpha Centauri." Okafor read the submission. The chess player suggested treating the entire battle as a three-dimensional chess game, with each human ship representing a different piece with different movement rules. The goal wasn't to destroy the enemy fleet, but to force it into positions where it would have to destroy itself to maintain formation. "This is brilliant," Okafor murmured. "It uses their strength against them." "There's more," Park continued. "A group of circus performers sent detailed plans for misdirection and illusion. They want to make our ships appear in places where they can't possibly be." As the strategies accumulated, patterns began to emerge. Humans instinctively understood something that military computers didn't. Unpredictability itself could be a weapon. The enemy expected logical behavior, mathematical precision, predictable responses to specific threats. Instead, humanity offered chaos wrapped in purpose. "Get me Admiral Vasquez," Okafor said. "I think we have enough strategies to work with." The connection crackled to life, showing Vasquez on the bridge of the Defiant. Behind her, the tactical displays showed human ships scattered across the inner system in what looked like complete disorder. "Report, Commander," Vasquez said. "We've received over 20,000 strategy submissions. I've selected 100 of the best ones, ranging from traditional military tactics to things that have never been tried in the history of warfare." "Give me the highlights." Strategy 7 involves every ship in our fleet moving differently. No two vessels use the same tactical doctrine. The enemy computers won't be able to predict what we're doing because we'll be doing everything at once. Continue. Strategy 23 comes from a 12-year-old. Make the enemy fight each other. We use false sensor signals to trick their ships into firing on their own forces. Vasquez nodded. "I remember being 12. We always found ways to make bullies hit the wrong targets." "What about the circus performers' plan?" Strategy 45. We use gravity wells and orbital mechanics to make our ships appear to teleport. The enemy will think we have technology we don't actually possess. And the music teacher's idea? We broadcast human music on all frequencies during battle. Jazz, rock, classical, folk songs from dozens of worlds. Their computer systems will try to find tactical meaning in the patterns and tie themselves in knots. As they spoke, Admiral Thex-9 was filing his evening report to the Hegemony High Command. Human resistance remains negligible. Their ships continue random movements, consistent with panic responses observed in 37 previous conquests. Estimate battle duration: 6 to 8 hours maximum. The report was filed and forgotten. The hegemony had more important concerns than one small species that would be extinct within days. But on Luna, in the corridors of human ships, and in the minds of 7 billion humans across dozens of worlds, something unprecedented was taking shape. Not just a battle plan, but a philosophy of war that had never been tried before. Controlled chaos, purposeful unpredictability, and the weaponization of human creativity. Begin implementation, Vasquez ordered. All ships, prepare for Strategy Phase 1. And Sarah? Yes, ma'am? Make sure every commander knows, when in doubt, do what the enemy least expects, even if we don't know what that is. The countdown timer showed 18 hours until the Krillian deadline. 18 hours to prove that being outnumbered meant nothing when you refused to fight by anyone else's rules. At exactly 0600 Universal Standard Time, the battle began. Admiral Fex 9 gave the order for his massive fleet to advance, expecting the humans to either surrender immediately or form traditional battle lines for a quick, decisive engagement. Instead, he watched in growing confusion as the human fleet exploded into chaos. "What are they doing?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "Unknown, sir. Every human ship is moving independently. We're detecting no coordinated battle pattern." On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Admiral Vasquez smiled as she watched her tactical display. 100 human ships were implementing 100 different strategies simultaneously, and the effect on the enemy was exactly what she'd hoped for. "Status report from all vessels," she ordered. "The Shanghai is implementing Strategy 15, Ancient Mongol Hit-and-Run Tactics," reported Commander Okafor. "They're using asteroid fields for cover and striking at enemy flanks before disappearing. The Berlin is running Strategy 27, Chess Grandmaster Patterns. They're treating the battle space as a three-dimensional board and positioning for checkmate moves. Mining vessel Constantine is executing Strategy 34, Football Playbook Adaptations. They're using cargo ships as blockers, while their converted drilling ships run quarterback sneaks through enemy formations." Vasquez nodded with satisfaction. To outside observers, it looked like complete madness. Human ships darted in seemingly random directions, appeared where they shouldn't be able to go, and used tactics that violated every principle of space warfare. The effect on the Krillian fleet was immediate and devastating. Admiral Fex 9 watched his tactical computers struggle to process what they were seeing. His ships were designed to counter standard military doctrine, formations, flanking maneuvers, coordinated attacks. Instead, they faced something their programming had never encountered: a fleet that fought like 100 different fleets all at once. "Sir, the Beijing is, I'm not sure how to describe this," his communications officer reported, voice filled with bewilderment. "Show me." The main screen displayed a human heavy cruiser that appeared to be dancing. It spun and twisted through space in patterns that served no obvious tactical purpose, yet somehow managed to avoid every shot fired at it while steadily approaching a cluster of Krillian destroyers. "It's using ballet positions," the tactical officer suggested hesitantly. What they couldn't know was that the Beijing's captain, Maria Rodriguez, had implemented Strategy 42, submitted by a professional dancer from the Mars colonies. The strategy was simple. Move like a person, not like a machine. Use emotion, intuition, and artistic expression to create flight patterns no computer could predict. The Beijing's graceful dance brought it within firing range of 3 Krillian ships whose targeting computers had given up trying to calculate intercept courses. Rodriguez's weapons officer, timing his shots to match the rhythm of a tango, destroyed 2 destroyers before the enemy even realized they were under attack. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. The mining vessel Constantine, following football strategies, used converted cargo haulers as offensive linemen to create gaps in the enemy formation. When Krillian ships moved to close these gaps, Constantine's drilling lasers, originally designed to cut through asteroids, tore through enemy hulls like they were made of paper. Strategy 23 is working perfectly. The enemy is starting to fire on their own ships. Human vessels had begun broadcasting false sensor signatures, making Krillian ships appear to be human vessels on enemy tactical displays. The perfectly coordinated enemy fleet, trained to maintain formation and avoid friendly fire, was now shooting at itself whenever it tried to target the phantom human ships. "Sir, we've lost 17 vessels to friendly fire," reported Thex 9's tactical officer, his mechanical voice showing the first hints of strain. "How is this possible? Our computers are designed to prevent such errors. The humans are broadcasting false identification signals. Our targeting systems can't distinguish between real threats and electronic warfare." But the false signals were just the beginning. Strategy 51 involved human ships suddenly starting to fly in perfect Krillian formations, until they suddenly didn't. Just as the enemy computers began to predict their movements, the human ships would switch to completely different patterns, leaving Krillian targeting systems scrambling to recalculate. The converted mining ship Prospector was implementing one of the most audacious strategies of all. Following plans submitted by a group of magicians, it used a technique called space misdirection. While the enemy focused on the ship's obvious weapons, hidden mining charges attached to small asteroids drifted undetected toward Krillian vessels. When the charges detonated, enemy ships found themselves under attack from directions they hadn't even been watching. "This is impossible," Admiral Thex 9 muttered, watching his perfect battle formation dissolve into confusion. "They're violating fundamental principles of warfare." His communications officer looked up from her station. "Sir, should we request additional tactical analysis from the hegemony?" "Send them everything we've recorded. Let the best minds in the Empire figure out what these humans are doing." What the humans were doing was proving that chaos, properly directed, was more powerful than order. Every ship captain had been given a simple instruction: when the plan stops working, try something else. When something else stops working, try something completely different. Captain James Wong of the destroyer Katana found himself facing 5 Krillian cruisers with no chance of survival using conventional tactics. So he implemented Strategy 67, suggested by a video game designer. Treat the battle like a roguelike game where death isn't permanent. Wong broadcast a fake distress signal, made his ship's engines appear to fail, and let the Katana drift apparently helpless toward a nearby asteroid. The Krillian ships, confident in their kill, moved in for the final strike. At the last second, Wong fired his engines at full power, using the asteroid's gravity to slingshot the Katana around at impossible speed, while his weapons tore through the surprised enemy formation. The Krillians had expected the Katana to be destroyed. Instead, it had respawned from behind the asteroid and eliminated 3 of their cruisers before they understood what had happened. By the end of the first day, the impossible was happening. Humanity's 100-ship fleet had destroyed over 300 enemy vessels while losing only 12 of their own. The numbers were still against them, but the trend was clear. Superior firepower meant nothing if you couldn't hit your target, and perfect formations were useless if the enemy refused to attack them the way you expected. Admiral Thex 9 filed his evening report with growing unease. Human tactics remain incomprehensible. Recommend immediate deployment of additional analytical resources. Current projection. Battle may last longer than anticipated. For the first time in the Krillian Empire's history, a battle that should have lasted hours was extending into days. And somewhere in the chaos of human unpredictability, The seeds of something unprecedented were growing. The possibility that 10,000 ships might not be enough. By the second day, Admiral Thex-9 had called in the best tactical minds in the Krillian Empire. 3 additional command ships arrived, their hulls packed with advanced computers and military analysts. Surely, they reasoned, any pattern of behavior could be understood and countered with sufficient analysis. They were wrong. Status report, Thex-9 demanded, as his enhanced tactical team settled into their stations. We have identified 43 distinct tactical patterns in the human fleet, reported his new chief analyst. A creature whose multiple heads allowed him to process data streams that would overwhelm single-minded species. However, just as we develop countermeasures for each pattern, the humans abandon it and adopt completely different strategies. Show me the analysis. The main tactical display lit up with complex diagrams showing human ship movements over the past 24 hours. Lines crisscrossed in patterns that looked like abstract art rather than military planning. The vessel designated Shanghai began using ancient cavalry tactics, then switched to submarine warfare principles, then adopted what appears to be courtship dance patterns from their homeworld. No single tactical doctrine explains their behavior. Thex-9 stared at the display. In 400 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like it. Every other species fought with some version of logical military doctrine. Humans seemed to be making it up as they went along. What he couldn't know was that this was exactly the plan. Aboard the UES Defiant, Admiral Vasquez was implementing Phase 2 of humanity's strategy. All ships, activate the remaining 50 battle plans. Time to show them what real chaos looks like. The response was immediate. Across human space, ship captains who had been waiting for this moment began executing strategies so unusual that most military computers would have rejected them as impossible. Captain Singh of the destroyer Mumbai implemented Strategy 51, suggested by a philosophy professor. If they expect us to be unpredictable, be predictably unpredictable, then unpredictably predictable. Singh's ship began flying in perfect geometric patterns, exactly what the Krillian computers expected. For 10 minutes, the Mumbai followed textbook military doctrine, allowing enemy targeting systems to lock onto its position and calculate intercept courses. Just as 5 Krillian ships moved to destroy the predictable human vessel, Singh switched to Strategy 52, random number generation. The Mumbai's flight path became truly chaotic, determined by dice rolls, coin flips, and random number generators. No computer could predict movements that weren't based on any logic at all. The Krillian ships, committed to their intercept courses, collided with each other in their confusion. Meanwhile, the converted cargo hauler Prosperity was implementing Strategy 67, submitted by a game designer who specialized in roguelike video games. The strategy was simple but psychologically devastating. Make the enemy think human ships could respawn after being destroyed. When Krillian ships damaged the Prosperity, it ejected life pods and debris while broadcasting emergency signals, then powered down all systems and drifted like a dead Hulk. The enemy, satisfied with their kill, moved on to other targets. 20 minutes later, the Prosperity systems came back online, and the dead ship opened fire on the rear of the Krillian formation. The psychological effect rippled through the enemy fleet. If human ships couldn't be permanently destroyed, how could the battle ever be won? Sir, Thex-9's communications officer reported with what sounded like electronic distress. We're receiving reports of destroyed human vessels returning to battle. That's impossible. Destroyed ships cannot return to combat. Perhaps they weren't actually destroyed, sir. Perhaps their destruction was an illusion. Strategy 78 was causing even more confusion. Submitted by a group of human psychologists, it involved making tactical decisions based purely on emotion rather than logic. Ships whose captains were angry would charge directly at the enemy. Ships whose captains were sad would retreat in seemingly random directions. Ships whose captains were feeling playful would engage in what looked like tag with enemy formations. The Krillian computers, designed to predict logical behavior, began showing signs of systematic failure. How could they calculate the combat effectiveness of a ship whose captain was making decisions based on whether he missed his daughter's birthday party? But the most devastating strategy was yet to come. "Implement Strategy 85, Vasquez ordered. Time to use their greatest strength against them. Strategy 85 had been submitted by an anthropologist who studied hive minds. Her insight was simple. Species that fought as a single organism were vulnerable to anything that disrupted their coordination. Human ships began broadcasting not battle communications, but something far more dangerous: stories. Personal tales of human struggle and triumph flooded the Krillian communication channels. Music from a dozen human worlds played on military frequencies. Poetry about love, loss, hope, and individual dreams poured into the collective consciousness of an empire that had never encountered true individuality. For the first time in their history, individual Krillian ship commanders began making unauthorized decisions. Some tried to protect ships that were playing particularly beautiful music. Others became fascinated by human poetry and forgot their tactical assignments. A few even tried to surrender, not from fear, but from curiosity about a species that could find beauty in the middle of a battle. "Sir, we're losing formation cohesion," reported the tactical officer. "Individual ships are deviating from assigned positions." Thex 9 watched his perfect battle formation dissolve as his ships began acting like individuals rather than components in a machine. The very strength that had made the Krillian Empire invincible, its unity of purpose, was being turned into a weakness. "Request immediate reinforcements," he ordered. "Double our numerical advantage." "Sir, that will require 20,000 ships. These humans have somehow weaponized chaos itself. We need overwhelming force to compensate." As the reinforcement request went out, Admiral Vasquez received the intelligence report and smiled. The enemy was about to make the mistake she'd been hoping for. They were going to give her more targets. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Prepare strategy 79 through 100. The real battle is about to begin." Admiral Thex 9 watched with satisfaction as his reinforcements arrived. 20,000 fresh ships joined his battered fleet, restoring the numerical advantage to 200 to 1. Surely, no amount of human trickery could overcome such odds. He was about to learn the final lesson humanity had to teach, that sometimes the best way to win is to change the entire nature of the game. "Sir, the humans are broadcasting again," his communications officer reported. "More of their chaotic battle chatter?" "No, sir. This is different." The transmission appeared on Thex 9's main screen. Admiral Vasquez sat calmly on her bridge, looking directly at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Admiral Thex 9, she said, "I want to tell you a story." "This is irregular," Thex 9 muttered, but he didn't cut the transmission. Something about the human's tone made him curious. "Once there was a little girl on Earth who was afraid of the dark," Vasquez continued. "Every night, monsters seemed to hide in her closet and under her bed. Her father could have told her to be brave, or installed brighter lights, or proven that no monsters existed. Instead, he gave her a flashlight and said, 'Now you have the power to see what's really there.'" Thex 9 found himself listening despite his better judgment. "That little girl grew up to be me," Vasquez said. "And today, I'm offering you the same gift my father gave me, the power to see what's really there." The transmission ended, but its effects were immediate. Across the battlefield, human ships began implementing the final phase of their strategy. Instead of attacking the reinforcements, they began broadcasting personal stories, music, and art directly to individual Krillian vessels. Strategy 79 wasn't about destroying the enemy fleet. It was about showing them that there was another way to exist. Captain Rodriguez of the Beijing found herself in conversation with the commander of a Krillian destroyer. The enemy captain had heard her ship dancing through space and wanted to understand why. "We fight like this because each of us is different," Rodriguez explained over an open comm channel. "Your ships all move the same way because you're all connected, all part of the same mind. But we're individuals. Each ship, each captain, each crew member thinks differently." "This seems inefficient," the Krillian captain replied, but there was curiosity in his voice. "Maybe," Rodriguez admitted, "but it's also beautiful. Would you like me to show you?" What followed was unprecedented in military history. While the main battle continued around them, Rodriguez taught the Krillian captain how to fly his ship like a dancer, how to make combat into an art form. Other human captains began similar conversations with enemy ships, sharing music, stories, and ideas. The reinforcement fleet, fresh from their journey and expecting immediate battle, found themselves in the middle of what looked more like a cultural exchange than a war. "What are they doing?" demanded the commander of the reinforcement fleet. "The humans appear to be talking to our ships," Fex9 replied, his voice filled with confusion he didn't fully understand. But Admiral Vasquez wasn't done. Strategy 85 came from a child psychologist. When dealing with aggressive behavior, sometimes the best response is to show genuine interest in the aggressor's well-being. "Admiral Fex9, she broadcast on an open channel, "how long has it been since you chose to do something just because it made you happy?" The question hit the Krillian commander like a physical blow. In 400 years of military service, he had never done anything for personal happiness. Every action, every decision, every thought had been in service to the Empire. "I don't understand the question," he replied. "That's exactly what I thought," Vasquez said gently. "Your species has forgotten how to be individuals. You've become so good at working together that you've lost the ability to work alone. But we can teach you." Strategy 92 was the masterstroke. Instead of destroying the enemy reinforcements, human ships began leading them in a complex orbital dance around the original Krillian fleet. The reinforcements, trying to maintain formation while avoiding collision with their own ships, found themselves caught in an impossible tactical situation. The two Krillian fleets, trying to coordinate their movements, began interfering with each other. Ships collided as they attempted to maintain perfect spacing. Communication channels became clogged as 20,000 vessels tried to report their status simultaneously. "Sir, we're experiencing cascading formation failures," reported the tactical officer, his voice strained with the effort of processing so much conflicting data. But the real damage wasn't to their ships, it was to their certainty. For the first time in their species' history, Krillian commanders were making individual decisions based on personal curiosity rather than imperial doctrine. Commander Vex 7 of the light cruiser Dominion found himself fascinated by a human cargo ship that was broadcasting what the humans called jazz music. The improvised melodies seemed to express something his species had no words for. "Why do you make these sounds during battle?" he asked over a private comm channel. "Because it helps us remember what we're fighting for," replied the human captain. "We're not just defending territory or resources, we're defending the right to create beauty, even in the darkest moments. I would like to learn more about this beauty," Vex 7 said, and with those words became the first Krillian commander to officially request cultural exchange instead of military victory. Admiral Fex 9 watched his fleets dissolve into chaos, but for the first time in his long career, the chaos didn't feel like failure. Individual ships were beginning to move independently, to make their own decisions, to explore questions they had never thought to ask. His final report to the hegemony was unlike any military communication in Krillian history. "The humans don't fight wars, they fight ideas. They have shown our commanders that there are ways of existing beyond military doctrine. Recommend immediate ceasefire and establishment of cultural exchange programs." The response from the hegemony was swift. "Explain." The humans have weaponized individualism. They have taught our crews to think as separate beings, rather than components of the Empire. This is not a military defeat. It is a philosophical revolution. 3 hours later, Admiral Vasquez received a formal communication from the Krillian hegemony, a request for peace talks and cultural exchange. Strategy 100, submitted by a kindergarten class, had been simple. After we win, we should be friends with them. As the two fleets stood down from battle stations, Vasquez looked out at the stars, where human and Krillian ships were now flying together, sharing music and stories instead of weapons fire. The final casualty count was almost irrelevant. Humanity had lost 18 ships, the Krillians had lost several hundred. But more importantly, the Krillian Empire had lost something else. The certainty that they were the only way intelligent life could organize itself. 6 months later, the first Krillian art exhibit opened on Luna, featuring sculptures created by former military commanders who had learned to express individual creativity. Human philosophers lectured at Krillian universities about the beauty of chaos and the strength found in diversity. The war had ended, not with the destruction of the enemy, but with their transformation. And in the end, that proved to be humanity's greatest strategy of all, showing the universe that there were more ways to win than anyone had ever imagined. The galaxy would never be the same.